Inside the epic battle for media's future, and how Amazon's new convenience store changes everything. This is episode 78 of Media Unplugged, the podcast that goes behind the spin to reveal what's really happening in media.
Media Unplugged with Tom Asacker and Mark Ramsey.
Welcome to Media Unplugged. I'm Mark Ramsey.
And I'm Tom Asacker.
Tom, as you can hear, I've got a little cold today, so please bear with me.
Do I have a choice?
Fortunately, we're not doing an audio show, so it won't have any bearing on the quality of our material at all.
Exactly.
Inside the epic battle for media's futures. This is from a piece from Needham that we found in our from our friends at what's it called? Media. What is that called?
Village.
Media Village. Thank you. Yes, we're only featured on there. It's not important for me to remember it at all. Sorry, Media Village. Laura Martin's the author of this thing. Laura is a crazy woman. I've met her. I know her. She is super smart. If you sit in front of her for any period of time, you will be overwhelmed, intimidated, maybe a little bit terrified, but you will certainly come away smarter for it because she's really, really a smart woman. So this is her summary. And as you commented to me before we started, gosh, it's long.
It's an epic article.
So, it is an epic article. I think this is what she gets paid for, actually, so it's all for the best.
All right.
But I want to touch on a few things here. She's basically framing literally the scope of the battle of the future of media. And she begins by kind of categorizing the players. She talks about who the champs are now, for example. She says, from an over-the-air U.S. TV industry generating less than $10 billion in revenue in 1980, the TV ecosystem, U.S. TV ecosystem spent the next 35 years together building one of the most successful U.S. consumer products of all time, the linear TV bundle. At its peak reach in 2010, 88% of U.S. households paid a subscription fee for the TV ecosystem for access to 250-plus pay TV channels. Although mega bundle pay TV subscribers are now declining, which we know, revenue has continued to rise, which I think is an interesting point, reaching about $170 billion in 2017. Those are the current champs. She separates the players by category, beginning with internet aggregators. She talks about internet aggregators. These would be Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. These are the people who are going to spend big money on premium video content, $3 to $6 billion in 2018. She says, we believe this will be TV series type content based on, among other things, the fact that Facebook has found that audiences would rather watch multi-episode video shows than one-off videos, as Facebook series have twice the average viewing time of non-serialized videos, according to Facebook. I found that fascinating. I didn't know that statistic. Did you?
No, it's not hard to understand. But again, that's on Facebook. It's context dependent. That doesn't mean that people prefer series over one-off movies.
Well, it's on Facebook. It's context dependent on Facebook. But I think you would agree that on television, unless we're talking about a sporting event or an award show or something, people likewise prefer series, right?
Well, they moved in that direction. I don't know if anybody has actually run the numbers on whether people are watching more movies or more series.
Well, given the fact that there are almost no movies available,
that could have something to do with it.
On most of the cable channels, that I think creates some data right there. And the fact that even HBO today, once called Home Box Office, is famous not for its movies. Also, she points out that 3 Mashable series have an average, and this would be Mashable, which again, a different context, have an average watch time 3 times longer than non-serialized videos, according to Mashable. So it's interesting that kind of serial content, which naturally tends toward traditional television style content. And of course, as you well know, it's similar to what we see in the podcast space.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, a series of things is more compelling than a one-off. And the longer the series, generally, the better. So her internet aggregators are interesting because not included in that list I read you, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, is a little thing called Netflix. And she comments on that. And this is interesting because this report, as we talked about, she's really down on Netflix. And I think we should talk about that. We do not include Netflix as an internet aggregator in this report. Why not? Because the internet aggregators organize long-tail assets, suggesting a power asymmetry with the platform having monopoly power compared to what it aggregates. In contrast, Netflix was built on contracts with the 6 major U.S. studios, each of which is taking its content away from Netflix to build their own over-the-top channels that will directly compete with Netflix. So why is Netflix doing more originals? Well, in part because they know that the value of the content that they're licensing is rising. At a certain point, they need to create their own content to compete against that other content. Meanwhile, the owners of that other content say, hey, we can play this game too. Boom, you have CBS All Access, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So it's an interesting way that she separates those two things because it's just an interesting distinction. The champs she refers to as incumbent U.S. TV ecosystem companies, and we could talk about whether you agree with this perception or not. She said they have several important competitive advantages in the fight for video economics. Engagement, enormous time spent daily with linear TV content, absolutely true. Dual revenue stream business model, we know this too, right? Mm-hmm. You've got you've got subscription revenue from cable operators, and you've got ad revenue. Cluster theory, which I thought was interesting, suggesting that because of the power centers in Hollywood for entertainment and Silicon Valley for technology, everything's going to gravitate towards those power centers. TV everywhere, adding value to the perceived price-value relationship of the mega bundle. In other words, if you have the great content, you have the capacity to spread it in more places and derive more revenue as a result without creating fresh content for those places. Mega bundle value. The high monthly price of skinny bundles and individual over-the-top channels for very limited programming and or access underscores the value of the 250-plus channel mega bundle. In other words, the more you have to pay for these one-off, cable channelettes, the more it's valuable to you to get it all in one big bundle. Confusion. Just the idea that there's so many of these things.
Right.
Where is The Handmaid's Tale? Gosh, I don't even know. Where is it? I do know, but I'm just saying.
Right.
And then ad growth. And this one I found to be actually most interesting, Tom, and then I'm going to pause and let you talk. U.S. TV advertising is expected to grow, adding about $1 billion in each of the next 5 years. U.S. TV advertising, and reaching nearly $80 billion by 2020. As ad blockers threaten the ad-driven internet sites, TV is a sure way for brands to reach audiences with their brand message via full-screen sight, sound, and motion, and no fraud, thanks to independent party measurement by Nielsen or ComScore. I'm going to pause, Tom.
Yeah. Well,
what do you think?
There were things that felt right to me in there, and there were some things that just didn't square with how I view this epic battle playing out for media's future. First of all, I would say that, let's boil it all down. The battle is for attention. That's the battle. And I'm not so sure that the competitive barriers that she mentions that are possessed by Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Google, I don't think they're as impenetrable as she and her co-writer happen to think. Because to me, when I think about this, I start thinking about the pipes to the house and the interface to the content. And to me, those are the keys to maintaining, growing and monetizing that attention. Like, for example, I'm going to wing hypothetical things at you for a second. What happens when smart TV manufacturers start implementing streaming capability into the TVs? Okay, that changes what people can now stick in your face when you flip that TV on.
What do you mean? They're doing that now, though, right?
Yeah, they're doing it now. All right, a lot of them are integrating some of the Roku products. But let me give you this one. I'll stretch it. What happens when Verizon gives you a smart TV for signing up to their streaming Fios service? Because right now what they're giving you is a free year of Netflix if you sign up. Right? So for the same amount of money, they say, sign up for Verizon Fios. We're going to give you this beautiful smart TV. And let's say that they're working on their own little platform within that TV. Now, who has the eyeballs? Right? And what prevents Verizon from teaming up with somebody and creating content for those eyeballs? This battle is just beginning.
I get that this battle is just beginning, and I get your point. I think the only thing I would say about that scenario is that's a really late scenario. That's a really late play in a game that's mostly won by other players. At least, and I know it's a moving target. I know it keeps rolling. But still, this is the problem, isn't it, that Apple has? That it's doubling down thanks to its Sony hires. It's doubling down now on content. We've seen in the past couple of weeks a slate of, new shows going to being given orders for Apple.
Right.
But they're coming from zero and trying to get to someplace. And what you just described with Verizon is interesting, but I mean, they're coming from less than zero. They've got the audience, but they got no content. Where's their content?
Yeah, but see, this is what I'm telling you. There's content all over the place. Where's the barrier to entry on content? This is the thing. You're like, look, you can say, look, I've got all of these products in my store. Great, that's great. How do you make sure people keep coming back to your store instead of jumping around somewhere else to the next new shiny thing? You said it. You said, "Oh, The Handmaid's Tale." Boom, next new shiny thing, and a lot of people jumped over there and got it. So yeah, a lot of these, Facebook and Google and they've got your attention on the phone, but content is a click away. Content is a click away. Maybe that's why Apple, you have to have, the Apple TV, the platform, or you can't get the content. I don't know.
Well, I think that's where it gets to what Laura called the cluster strategy. And, you're dealing with the Hollywood community largely there. And you're talking about a situation where, okay, some content may be a click away, but not necessarily great content, or the content by great, I mean the content you most want to see. I mean, there's a reason why when you look at the people that Apple is signing up, you're seeing a name like, Reese Witherspoon rather than Mark and Tom. I mean, we could listen, right now, let me put out the offer. Apple, you want content? Mark and Tom are here, right? We'll create some content for you. But I don't think I can necessarily argue authentically that we can do better than Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, no. No, you're right. I mean, they even go on to mention it, near the end, where they say that, and this is kind of highlights that phrase that people use when they say culture eats strategy for lunch, right? Because they write that they believe that what makes a great creative culture is very difficult to replicate, and it has little to do with money. Anyone in Hollywood will take your money, and they each believe they have the next Forrest Gump or Pretty Woman or Wedding Crashers. However, 1 out of every 10 TV series or films is a hit, and most of the others are written off.
Not only that, but, as I know from personal experience, a lot of stuff gets shopped that may, let me not jinx it, but may or may not reach a TV screen near you. And that's the stuff that gets shopped, right? So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't even get that far. I mean, it's like I had a conversation with somebody and they said, well, if you look, people are coming to me and they say, because this is someone who has relations over at Netflix, and he said, what does it take to get to sell a show to Netflix, since they seem to be buying everything under the sun? And he said, for one thing, it takes the actual show, not an idea for a show, not a thought about a show, not a concept for a show, not a treatment for a show. It takes the show. Right. And this is what separates the men from the boys. And while it's really easy to create a podcast with a couple of microphones and Audacity, it's really hard to create a quality television show. And then even there, because 1 out of 10 are successful, it's just going to favor towards the people with the track records and the resources. All of this is going to go towards the installed, kind of the institution of the television institution. That is what Laura says is likely to be the winner in the long run. And I don't know that I disagree with her.
But she's also saying that she thinks that these internet aggregators will end up eventually buying the movie studios.
She did say that.
And running them independently. So
here's what she said.
That's interesting.
Here's what she said. In the end, we believe it is likely that at least one of the internet aggregators will be successful at generating consumer adoption of a new form of video content that centers around their unique platform strengths. And by the way, in general, those unique platform strengths are not television.
Right.
However, she says, we think it is unlikely any internet aggregator will be able to create a culture that directly displaces the best and brightest. And then she goes on to say, we believe they will buy the studios and run them independently with a handful of executives translating Hollywood jargon into Silicon Valley speak, et cetera, et cetera. So this is your point. And I think that is the most legitimate thing of all. When we analyze these, we could talk about Verizon. So Oath owns, what, Verizon and Yahoo?
No, but you're right. Look, and you know this because...
Or Oath owns AOL and Yahoo, sorry.
Right, but I get your point, and it's something that people can't really see unless you've spent a lot of time working with a lot of these big companies over the years, like you have and I have. And, having pointed out the obvious to these people over and over again, I know that it's the ability to move an organization quickly into the future. That is the most powerful competitive weapon there is, and that's all about culture.
That's a good point. And yes, we've spoken offline about that, and I can completely understand that when you're dealing with these big bureaucratic organizations, all of these are,
right.
Unless it's really, really clear to them, it's so much easier and safer to say no.
That's exactly right.
You are listening to Media Unplugged with Tom Asacker and Mark Ramsey. How Amazon's new convenience store changes everything. I just thought this was fascinating, Tom. On the one hand, I think it's long overdue. On the other hand, it changes everything, and yet I wonder if it changes nothing. That's what we'll talk about here. Checking out Amazon Go, the first no-checkout convenience store. Very clever, Fast Company. Thank you for that. The cashierless shop, which uses AI to ring up your purchases, could be a key part of Amazon's expanding vision of retail's future, and it opens Monday. Every part of the U.S. has a different local term for convenience store. Now Amazon wants to extend its brand to the notion of grab-and-go shop with Amazon Go, a store that literally lets you grab and go. On Monday, more than a year after they unveiled the concept, the first store opened in Seattle to welcome all shoppers. On arrival, you launch the Go app, which comes out today for iPhones and Android phones and connects to your Amazon account. It displays a 2D code that you scan at one of the several glass security gates. The code identifies you to the store and opens the gate. And then you're in the store with no people. And then how the store keeps track of you and your purchases isn't clear. There's no people in there. Amazon's back-end system is ostensibly now powerful enough to handle a store full of shoppers, which means no one can block what you're doing. They know what's going on. They've got cameras all over the place. And evidently it works. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I'm not sure how that, relates to the idea that, we want more people working in more jobs in the future, but that's a separate point. But what occurred to me as I read this was, isn't this something 7-Eleven should have been working on 10 years ago?
Oh, yeah. See, this is the culture thing again. Look, a few years ago, I was given a keynote speech at a conference for customer experience executives. So these are innovators in their field. I showcased Amazon Go back then because,
really?
Oh, yeah, because they had a video. So that's all they had was a video. And I put the video up there, and I swear to you, I could feel their skepticism. I could feel it. Now, I'm going to explain why they felt that way in a minute, but I want to tell you a couple of things about this because I can feel this and I know exactly what's going on because I've been there and I've seen this before. So anyway, I saw a tweet yesterday from someone that that read, "I'm in Seattle and there's currently a line to shop at the grocery store whose entire premise is that you won't have to wait in line." So I thought that was pretty funny. But look at this. I'm going to tell you what's going on here because I love this. This is pure strategy. It's wonderful to even think about. So the convenience store industry is like a $550 billion industry. Half of it is just gasoline sales. So you got a little over 200 some odd billion dollars, and it's primarily in food. And by the way, it's been moving towards fresh food. Right? Coffee and pizza and sandwiches. And these stores are everywhere, all over the United States. This seems like an opportunity to me for Amazon to do a few things, especially deepen their relationship with consumers. And that's their primary strategy, right? So all of the insights you need are contained in the last paragraph of that Fast Company article, assuming you can read between the lines. So let me read it to you, and then let me tell you what they're doing, because it's really clever. It says, so Amazon Go is actually a machine designed for throughput, but the mechanisms that make customers the cogs are hidden. The concept could allow the volume and margins to turn a profit that would be worth making, and it's a new way for Amazon to gather intensely valuable information about some of its core customers, embedding them even deeper into the all-encompassing Amazon ecosystem that's starting to fill every niche. So here's what's going on. This is like, it's threefold. I'll give you this strategy. One, invest in technology in order to eliminate the marginal cost of the items it sells. That's one, and I'll explain that in a second. Two, deepen the relationship with customers, especially millennials, by getting them to make purchases a habit, right? And accumulating and analyzing data so that they can personalize their experiences over time. And continue to introduce their own products to leverage production and distribution costs and increase margins. Okay, let me break that down real quick. So with Amazon Go, they're going after the urban millennial who doesn't have easy access to large grocery stores. This is like my daughter when she was living in Boston. She couldn't get to a grocery store. She'd have to take the subway and then haul all of these bags home. She couldn't do it. So they already have those shoppers buying bulk items on Amazon instead of through warehouse clubs like Costco. So what these people do is Amazon's searching out desire, and then they fulfill it with their unique strategy. Now that strategy, that what I talked about, the margins, and when I talked about marginal costs, I've been there. Let me explain it to you. My dad used to own a full-service gas station. I worked at there pumping gas. Every time someone pulled in to get gas, someone had to run out and pump the gas. And my dad had to pay those people. So the more customers my dad attracted, the more attendants he had to hire and pay. All of a sudden, across the street, a self-service gas station opens. So some big oil and gas company invested big time in that technology. But once they installed it, they could drop prices and steal all of my dad's customers because they didn't have the additional marginal cost of the attendance, right? So just like the customer experience professionals in the audience during that talk I gave where everybody got skeptical, my dad rolled his eyes. He didn't think it would work because he didn't want the damn thing to work. This is the game Amazon. This is the game Amazon's playing. Like these gas companies did, Amazon's going to start blanketing the marketplace with these stores. And eventually, this is the next step. Those stores will be selling Amazon products, right? Fulfilled by Amazon fulfillment centers.
Amazon branded products,
Big
you mean, or
absolutely.
whatever.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Because there's the margin, right? They don't have to ship in products from anyone else. It's their products in their distribution centers. Just keep replenishing the store. This is the same strategy employed by Netflix when they did licenses with all those studios, and now they used that leverage they created from that to launch their own Netflix originals. There you go. You see, that's exactly what's going on. It's like people don't see what they're doing, and they allow them to do it. That's why these TV manufacturers, a lot of them are working with Roku to put in the smart TV inside of their TVs. Why? Because they're scared to death of Google and Facebook and all these other guys. They don't want them inside these TVs.
As well they should be.
Right.
I've got one other point on Amazon, too, since your story is really compelling, and it reminds me of one other thing that I left out of Laura's piece on Amazon. Here was one of her Outlook summaries on Amazon specifically. She said, Amazon is clever and cunning, which is a great compliment coming from Laura. Launching its own ad-supported over-the-top service, and now she's being theoretical here. Launching its own ad-supported over-the-top service, ad-supported over-the-top service, and tying any 30-second TV ads, Tom, to subsequent purchases made on the Amazon website using Alexa hardware in the home, thus closing the loop between a TV commercial and actual purchase, which is the holy grail for advertisers. It would give Amazon 2 revenue streams from premium online video, plus drive upside for its core business. So they get ad revenue, they get subscription revenue, and they get to sell paper towels, all in a closed. And they make the paper towels.
That's just what I'm saying. This is genius what they're up to here. And people better watch out when they get in bed with these guys, because you know what happens.
That's right. It is the world's, by the way, in case we forget, it is the world's largest bookstore.
Yes, it is. It's all about books.
Tom, it's time for Rants and Raves. What do you have?
Well, this is a quick one, because I know you're fighting a cold. And it is basically a rant on our culture's single-minded pursuit of success and financial gain. It's driving me absolutely crazy. It has gotten so far out of whack that it has become almost comical. I mean, here's an example for you. I read that a dozen camels were recently disqualified from a Saudi beauty pageant for receiving Botox injections to make them more attractive. Camels. You heard me right. A veterinarian was caught performing plastic surgery on the camels a few days before the pageant. In addition to the injections, his clinic was surgically reducing the size of the animals' ears to make them appear more delicate. Listen, people, leave the friggin' animals alone. Please.
Wow.
Please. I mean, we are, as human beings, without a doubt, the most screwed up creatures on the planet. And that's why I start every one of my consulting engagements by sharing this Mark Twain quote. When we remember we are all mad, the mysteries disappear and life stands explained.
And he doesn't mean angry.
No, he doesn't.
He means the other kind of mad.
Exactly.
That's terrific. Wow, that's a good one. You got me beat there, I will tell you. I have a couple. I don't think either one will take too long. The first one is kind of, I don't know. Tom, Kodak is a venerable old brand of 130 some odd years, is it not?
I know where you're going.
So you saw the news this week.
Yep.
I have it from the BBC that they just Kodak stocks soared on Kodak coin in Bitcoin mining plans. They soared nearly 120%, which I think goes from about 30 cents to 45 cents, if I'm not mistaken. After it revealed plans to mint its own cryptocurrency, the Kodak coin. Now, Kodak, as you know, it pretty much is a licensing company. Kodak is like the Trump organization. It's a licensing company nowadays. So it just licenses its name, which, against all odds and all logic, is still perceived as valuable. It makes no sense to me, but, there it is. So it's teaming with London-based When Media Group to carry. By teaming, they mean we're being paid by London-based When Media Group to carry out the initial coin offering, the ICO. Kodak is the latest in a series of companies to see its value jump after revealing plans for blockchain-related activity. Quote, "This is a phenomenon we saw back in the dot-com days of the late 1990s, where traditional companies would mention some kind of internet strategy and their stock price would jump up." Commented Garrick Hilleman from the University of Cambridge. When you see stock prices moving like this, it does appear to be troubling. It's hard to say if there's a bubble, but it certainly is indicative of a frothy investment market. I don't know what that means. So, and then they go on to say, this is one of my favorite sentences. Kodak developed a digital camera in 1975, but decided not to commercialize the technology at the time, and its hesitation to leave behind its film heritage is thought by some to have contributed to it filing for bankruptcy protection years later in 2012. What do you think, Tom? Any connection there at all?
Look, don't get me started on this.
So, since that collapse, Kodak has licensed its brand to a variety of manufacturers, with the mark appearing on batteries, printers, drones, tablet computers, and digital cameras. And in a memorable episode of The Apprentice, a laser printer and laser printer equipment. I remember that full well. So that's one. There's more to that, but I'm disgusted by it. One other real quick one I have for you. This is from research in the drum. Nearly 3/4 of women over 50 shun all advertising. I thought, I've got to read this.
What the hell does that even mean?
I have to read this because this is research, so it must be true.
Oh.
72% of women aged 53 to 72, dubbed baby boomers, thanks for that insight, don't pay attention to advertising, quote unquote, according to a report examining the evolving relationship between women and marketing. There's not a word in this piece which is credible. Elastic Generation, the Female Edit, which apparently is the name of the report, believe it or not.
How would you know if somebody paid attention to something? This is funny.
Well,
Keep going.
I just pay attention to me for a moment.
All right.
Sought the opinion of women aged 53 to 72 from the J. Walter Thompson, do they still call it that? JWT?
I think so. I don't know.
London Innovation Group, which is a lot of words which are wasted on this report, in an effort to pin down an accurate depiction of this key demographic. Okay, you're going to love this. Here it comes. It found that 91% of respondents wished advertisers would treat them as people and not as stereotypes. With 90% agreeing with the statement, quote, I'm not going to start dressing in beige just because I'm over 50 now.
Keep going.
In a similar vein, 71% stated that they were still a, quote, kid at heart.
Oh, yeah?
While 73% expressed displeasure at how their generation was patronized with regards to technology. Adding weight to these findings, no pun intended, 81% of women polled
we just
said they
lost
did not.
a whole demographic.
I know. As 81% of women polled say they did not recognize themselves in advertising supposedly targeted at their generation. Nor will they ever, Tom. That's the whole point of advertising. You're not supposed to recognize yourself. You're supposed to aspire to be that which you see on the big screen. As such, brands are encouraged to think beyond age as a number and get to the bottom of what really motivates their target audience while ensuring the depictions of older people in advertising are authentic. Somehow, none of those things align, by the way, Tom. Such findings are highly worrying for marketers, given that 78% of over 50s command the purse strings in their households, with the age group accounting for over half of all consumer spending in the UK. And then the last sentence is my favorite. JWT are seeking to, quote, redefine femininity, end quote, with Female Tribes Consulting, focused exclusively on women. So what'd you get out of that report, Tom?
Well, first of all, if people are treating others like a stereotype, it's because the others are acting like a stereotype. I think that's the thing that's lost on everybody. Like,
to me,
why are they running ads like that? Huh? Did you hear me?
I just, anytime there's a survey where it's 90% of people basically say, no, I'm not an idiot, but thank you for asking. You have to question the results of this survey. Okay, that's Media Unplugged for this week. Please remember to subscribe to us at iTunes or on Stitcher. And while you're there, please rate the show. It helps other folks discover us, and some would consider that. Some say that's a good thing. You can also catch us at Art 19, Radio Inc., Media Village, which is called Media Village, by the way. It's right there on the paper.
We lost them as a sponsor. We lost
I know, there it goes.
AARP as listeners. We've lost everything.
I know. It's unbelievable. And Google Play Music because of our great soundtrack. You can follow Tom on Twitter at Tom Asacker and Mark Ramsey Media. Send us your questions and comments using hashtag Media Unplugged. By the way, Tom, I heard from one listener that he liked the British voice that introduces our show because it makes it sound that much more credible.
Oh, at least we got one listener.
It's all downhill from there. If there's a media topic you want us to cover, tweet us. Catch up on older episodes at our website, MediaUnplugged.net. Older, by older, I mean between 53 and 72, dubbed baby boomers. Special thanks to the producer of Media Unplugged, Jeff Schmidt, exciting audio for media. You can find him at jeff-schmidt.com. And for those of you still listening, and for Tom Asacker, I'm Mark Ramsey. Thank you for listening.